morning. This is Peggy Kelly, and this is Good Morning Santa Paula. I'm here today with Dan Singer, the city manager of Santa Paula, and he's been a very busy guy, as you know, with the COVID-19 crisis. That it's just work all the time. It really is. I'm pleased that our county government and our city government and our state government have been so proactive about this. But Dan, so hello, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm
How
great.
are you? Good, good. Glad to hear it. Where are we right now with COVID-19 and the, let's say the business community? I know there's been a little change, a little easing of the state at least for businesses as far as soft reopenings. Can you tell us a little more about that?
That's correct. That's actually been passed down by the governor, and the county was able to conform with a number of the requirements, and this past Friday began to do a peeling back of some of the restrictions. There's still quite a lot of requirements involved for businesses, but especially in manufacturing, it's enabling businesses that do manufacturing to start to gear back up. And that's a real positive. I think the challenge for a community like Santa Paula is businesses that were non-essential that may be allowed to open can only do so basically with curbside pickup or delivery. And a lot of our smaller businesses aren't well equipped for that. They're not really geared up for that. They don't have comprehensive websites that display their products and things. So I think that's a bit of a challenge, and while it's a positive step forward, I don't know that it has a real material effect on our town. But I do hope that in the coming weeks we're going to continue to see a softening of these restrictions with proper, practices in place. It's so important that people are continuing with the distancing and the cleaning and following rules, especially if people have symptoms, obviously face protections and hand washing when they're interacting with others. And as long as those things are going on, we're really working with the county to try and encourage the allowance of other businesses to start to open their doors.
Good, good. Well, and I've seen or heard talk of people that perhaps are trying to maybe even at this point in time push gift cards. So, but that's usually,
sure,
that's a good idea. And then people could perhaps, but it's just a matter too of marketing. How are they going to be able to show the wares that they're not like some of the great big box stores that you can go online and you can pick out what you want, you can check out, and then you drive up and they have somebody run out and put in your car, which some of them were doing before the COVID-19 pandemic hit anyway, and it was actually a very thrifty way to shop because you didn't browse and pick up things that, struck your fancy,
Yeah.
But that's true. And I know that it is hard on the businesses. I know some of the restaurants are slowly starting to reopen, and
a couple of them.
Are they going to be doing sit down dining yet? Or,
no.
And I know it would be very, very restricted even when they are able to.
And unfortunately, according to the state's plan, that's not anticipated till the level 3, and we're probably still quite a ways off for level 3. So I think that we're still in for a long haul. Whether that takes us through the entire summer or just the next few months is still unclear. But counties have to meet the state's criteria in order to start to reopen the doors of retail and restaurants.
Give me a couple examples of the state criteria. I know I saw examples that were like what businesses had to do to be able to even open up on a limited basis, and I hadn't approached as far as what the actual criteria was from the state at this point. I'll be doing that later in the week. But give us some examples of what that criteria is.
Yeah, so it's at the county level, and the county has to, through its health department primarily, has to be able to demonstrate the ability to increase the testing, including for those that may or may not be symptomatic, to be able to do tracing, to obviously reduce the hospital visits. They have to be able to have certain number of beds available,
Right. The PPE.
all the PPE.
Equipment.
It's those kind of health-related responses that the county has to demonstrate that they can meet before the county can then kind of open up some of the doors. One of the
Sure.
big concerns, though, is that one of the criteria is both a number of tests for every positive and tracing, which takes a large gearing up by the county. But also, one of the criteria is that there can't be any deaths within a 14-day period. And that seems very random to me, and it also seems very unachievable in the next few months.
I agree. Sadly, I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty ambitious, you know, and
It is.
I know there's been some controversy about the tracing and things like that, but people forget that even with like tuberculosis, they have very strict rules about people that have come in contact with people that have tuberculosis.
Right.
But it's just that this is on a huge scale. It's the same thing they've done in the past, but this is on a much larger scale. And we all know, because we're all starting to personally know people now that have COVID or actually have passed away from COVID. And you know,
including here.
it's not like your typical flu year or anything like that. It's completely different. And as I've said before, I think that COVID is in of itself, it's proven it's a disease. Whereas with the flu, you get the flu and you get the pneumonia and you might pass away. That's just a secondary thing. With the COVID, it's the first thing that you have to fight off. And that's why people with the immunities are the most at risk.
Yeah.
Now, what's going on as far as with the businesses? And I know the city has its needs too. And are you getting any relief at all from any agencies?
No.
Usually when we declare a state of emergency, there's FEMA money coming. There's all sorts of things. What's going on in this situation?
You know, the hope is that FEMA will be able to reimburse us for direct expenses. But our direct expenses are really quite small. They're in the tens of thousands of dollars so far. It's the loss of revenue that's large, in the millions of dollars, or at least hundreds of thousands. And unfortunately, none of the federal kind of stimulus packages, bailouts, if you will, have addressed funding for local jurisdictions. And so we've pushed hard on the state as well as the county, because the state's getting billions of dollars. Our county is getting almost $150 million. And so far, nobody's sharing it with any of the local cities. And it's really quite disturbing. We've sent off letters to our state representatives. The mayor is signing a letter today that's going to our congressional and Senate representatives, as well as the president. And it's so essential that there is some type of relief. And it doesn't even have to be that much, because on the one hand, we're asked to fight this thing at the front lines. So, you know, our increased police responses and all of the work we're doing to provide meals for seniors and work with the homeless and whatnot is costing money. And yet, meanwhile, we have this loss of revenue. So we are hopeful that there'll be some type of relief coming in the coming months. Otherwise, we're faced with definite cuts.
Oh boy. Now, where does the county, you said and I had read that they'd gotten 150 or were earmarked 150 million for them. Now, what fund is that from? Where is the?
That's from the CARES Act. Something called the, I think it's CRF, the Coronavirus Relief Fund portion of the CARES Act. So
and why does not the city get that? Is it just for certain sizes?
Yeah.
Is it based on a per capita basis?
So those funds were to cities over 500,000 or counties over 500,000 in population.
Wow.
And there are no cities over 500,000 in this whole region.
That's true.
You have to get all the way up to San Jose or down to LA before you hit a city that size. There's only 6 cities in the whole state that meet that criteria. And there's over 480 cities. in the state of California. So you can see how disproportionate it is.
Yeah, and there's actually some counties that probably don't even meet that too.
That's correct.
Yeah, some of our smaller counties. Now, I know that you've been discussing it quite a bit with the council, and it's been, you've been doing a lot of budget study. Where is the city sitting right now financially?
Yeah, we're looking at the loss of just over $1 million this fiscal year, which ends at the end of June, and projecting a loss that's probably around 1.3, maybe 1.4 million for next fiscal year.
Wow.
So the timing of this is awkward because everyone's in the middle of doing their budgets, but
Right.
it changes every week, right? So we're struggling to bring a complete and reliable budget forward to our city council in the month of June. Actually, we'll start budget workshops late May because it's such a moving target.
Yeah. And,
so
and the city's budget is from June to July every year is basically
yes, that's correct. Or July to June, July 1st.
July to June, excuse me. Yeah. So basically, this COVID, this pandemic just completely wiping out the last quarter. Is that basically where you're at? Yeah.
Yeah. Sales tax is down significantly. So on the positive side, we were already, 8-9 months of healthy sales tax receipts into the year. But then the negative is that it gives us very little time to save money because there's only 2 months left before the fiscal year ends.
Yeah. So no reaction time really when you get right.
That's right. That's right. It's a big challenge, and Santa Paula is not alone here. All of the cities are experiencing very similar losses. You look at a larger, healthy city with higher incomes like Thousand Oaks, and yet their mall is closed, right? So, even their car dealers. It's all proportional to the community, and so I'm not here to whine about it any more than our neighbors to the, north, south, east, and west are, because we're really all seeing the same type of losses, and unfortunately have the same basket of tools available, which is very limited on how we make up that money.
Yeah, well, I know that they've reopened car sales, so that's good because that is something, and Bunnings geared up and they're up and running under very strict guidelines.
Yes.
But another problem is gas is like the joke is now, I'm getting 3 weeks to a gallon because everybody's staying home, and it's very cheap. So that's always been a nice source of income of sales tax, and that's practically disappeared. So
absolutely. One positive is we haven't seen this hit the real estate market yet. I think it's only a matter of time until we see some slowdown. But out at Harvest, the sales have actually been better in the last 2-3 weeks than they were before COVID. So that's a positive sign. The Rosewood project is, I believe, if it's not sold out, it's very close. So those are positives for our community, and we look forward to welcoming new residents in.
Absolutely.
And hopefully one day soon we'll be able to open Main Street up again.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Well, how is this at this point in time? I know you guys still have kind of a wait and see, but make drastic plans in the interim type of a thing. When do you think you guys are going to have to start making some decisions as far as what you're actually going to do? I guess you're going to get through this. I know you have, your own thoughts on what could be in the future, but when is your cutoff point to say, well, or do you have one?
Yeah, well,
we've got to take action right this instant. I mean, I know you already have, to the extent that that it's possible for the city, but we need city services. Yeah. It's not
we've
like
already
the city down.
We've already done quite a bit of belt tightening. We are making significant cuts to expenditures for next fiscal year. We will have to get the council to adopt a budget by the end of June. So basically our time frame is the next 6 to 7 months. 6 to 7 weeks.
Yeah.
We did get the council's support to utilize some reserves, some monies that were unallocated. So they weren't really technically part of our reserves. And so that's helping. And we're asking employees to make concessions, and we're in negotiations right now with our employees. And I expect that there'll be concessions going into this next budget year. The question will be in the coming month, will those three factors be enough? You know, cutting expenses, cutting labor, and then also using some of our excess money. Will that be enough? And that's the big question. And we'll know that answer in the coming weeks.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I don't know what to say. I mean, you know, it's just something that I know that it's going to be over eventually. We all know that. I look forward to that. We all do. I think it will have a wonderful effect on people mentally and emotionally, and I mean, the physically goes without thought, you know, but it's just that I think they're going to want to go out, they're going to want to spend money, they're going to want to celebrate freedom, because basically, you know, we're all self isolating and all that, but it's just that what the heck are we going to do in the interim, you know,
especially as the weather gets better, and we have seen a spike in cases here. So I do want to encourage people to keep the faith and keep practicing, you know, the distancing and protecting yourself. Try and stay at home, except if you're out exercising or getting essential services. I think these next few weeks, although I've said this before, but I think these next few weeks will be telling. And if we can get towards the end of May now and see a slowdown in the expansion of cases, then I think we'll be able to see our businesses start to reopen more and start to go back to normal. So we'll try and leave it on that better, more positive outlook.
Absolutely. Well, be sure to tune in. Thank you so much today, Dan. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And we're on kadytv.com, and be sure to go ahead and go in, subscribe, and then that way we're able to bring you more programming like this. I'm Peggy Kelly, and it was nice spending the morning with you and with Dan Singer. And after all, Santa Paula is the center of the universe, so let's remember that. And I'll see you soon. We'll be back in a few days. Thank you, Dan.
Take care, everyone.